I told them they need to post the guy over here. I told them that the Secret Service
started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight." I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that.
Can you believe it's been 1 year since President Donald Trump was shot on stage at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania? Since then, we've heard about Secret Service failures, and Trump was elected for his second term in the White House. Let's take a look at that fateful rally and everything that came after the attempted assassination.
A political rally turned into a crime scene.
This is a big crowd. This is a big, big, beautiful crowd.
As the former president spoke to his supporters in Butler, Pennsylvania Saturday, gunshots ripped through the air. Donald Trump seen reaching for his ear before dropping to the ground. Secret Service immediately rushing the stage to surround him. Screams heard in the crowd. After a few tense moments, the former president on his feet, blood spattered across his cheek and ear, Trump giving a fist bump as Secret Service whisked him away to the hospital. The Associated Press reporting the shooter is dead, along with one rally attendee. President Biden said he would be speaking to Trump and condemned the violence.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick.
We spoke with a Trump supporter who was 6 rows from the stage.
Just a sad day for America. Just a really sad day for America. The vibe was, it was open with prayer. People were united. This is America. This is freedom, regardless of your politics.
In the days that followed, information about the shooter, Thomas Crooks, and other victims at the rally came out.
Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, is identified by the FBI using DNA.
I just know he was bullied. I don't want to say he was an outcast, but he was, you know how kids nowadays, he didn't dress like everyone else, so everyone kind of put a target on him. He sat alone in lunch.
Investigators report he had no criminal history. Crooks was a registered Republican who had recently donated a small amount to a progressive cause. Trump's campaign launches a GoFundMe account raising millions for those injured in the shooting. The murdered attendee at Trump's rally is ID'd as an ex-volunteer fire chief and girl dad, Corey Comperatore. David Hutch and James Copenhaver were also injured, but are recovering from their wounds.
So lawmakers and Americans alike were wondering how something like this could even happen and who was behind these security failures.
The country struggling to understand how a 20-year-old got access to the rooftop a little more than a football field away from where Trump stood on stage, with enough time to fire off deadly shots.
This was a colossal failure on multiple fronts. This should never happen.
There appears to have been a communication breakdown between federal and local agencies. NBC News reporting Secret Service did identify that rooftop as a vulnerability days before the event. A Secret Service spokesman says the roof was local law enforcement's jurisdiction.
There'll have to be, great scrutiny because, another inch and our president would have been dead.
However, Butler County District Attorney Richard Goldinger said the Secret Service was in charge of security outside the venue. CNN sources also saying the Secret Service did not sweep the rooftop prior to the rally.
Where the hell was the aerial visual support? Why was there no helicopter? How the hell is the crowd acting as the freaking counter surveillance operator?
The director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, faced a lot of backlash for the agency's failures.
Republicans calls for the director of the Secret Service to be removed.
She should be fired. She should have been fired Saturday night.
Growing louder.
What does it take to get fired by Joe Biden? It was an absolute security catastrophe.
I'm prepared this morning to call on President Biden to fire to Director Cheadle.
Tensions running high after GOP senators say top Secret Service and FBI officials ignored their questions on private briefing calls held Wednesday on the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump.
Kimberly Cheadle was on that call.
Yes.
The call was cut as the questions in the queue were lining up.
That's right.
The senators confronting Director Cheadle at the RNC.
This is exactly what you were doing today on the call. Stonewalling. No shame, no concern. Protect the presidency of the United States.
She can run, but she cannot hide.
On the calls, lawmakers were given a timeline of events. At 5:10, law enforcement identifies the shooter as a person of interest. At 5:52, snipers spotted the gunman on the roof. At 6:02, security allows Trump to take the stage.
Take a look at what happened.
At 6:12, the shooter opened fire. Director Cheadle also slammed for the excuse she gave ABC News as to why snipers were not on that rooftop.
That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof.
Now, amid these calls to step down, Cheadle has to answer for the Secret Service at a congressional hearing into the shooting.
Will you resign, Director Cheadle? The director of the Secret Service appearing before Congress. Tough questions coming from both sides of the aisle.
Why was he allowed to take the stage with a suspicious person having been identified in the crowd?
The Secret Service failure even more glaring because Trump was under a heightened security risk due to a credible threat from Iran. Republicans demanding clarification on reports that top agency officials had denied requests made by the agents protecting the former president for more resources.
More than once they asked for additional help and you turned them down. What did they ask for and how many times did you turn them down? Pretty basic questions.
So again, without having all of the details in front of me, sir.
You didn't get briefed on that before you came to this hearing, knowing you were going to get asked that question?
Because Donald Trump is alive, and thank God he is, you look incompetent. If Donald Trump had been killed, you would have looked culpable.
Cheadle ends up resigning after her disastrous congressional hearing just 10 days after the shooting.
I'm glad she did the right thing. Look, our reaction, the immediate reaction to her resignation is that it is overdue. She should have done this at least a week ago.
The second in command, Ronald Rowe, quickly appointed as acting director. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas writing, "I appreciate his willingness to lead the Secret Service at this incredibly challenging moment." Cheadle stepped down less than 24 hours after a disastrous hearing on Capitol Hill where lawmakers pressed her for answers on the security failures at Donald Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
This is not theater. This is not about jockeying. This is about the safety of some of the most highly targeted and valued targets internationally and domestically.
President Biden releasing a statement thanking Director Cheadle for her decades of public service, adding, "As a leader, it takes honor, courage, and incredible integrity to take full responsibility for an organization tasked with one of the most challenging jobs in public service."
At this point, people are pointing fingers at local law enforcement and the Secret Service who were at the rally. Local law enforcement ended up releasing body cam footage and text messages they sent identifying the shooter before Trump even took stage.
I told them they need to post the guy over here. I told them that the Secret Service. I told them that Tuesday. I told them to post guys over here.
More than an hour and a half before Trump took the stage in Butler, Pennsylvania, a local counter sniper finishing his shift took notice of the shooter, texting colleagues, "He knows you guys are up there." Here is an aerial view of the Trump rally site. You can see right here the stage Trump was standing on. The local counter sniper first spotted the gunman sitting on a picnic table at 4:26 p.m. right here. Another local counter sniper then takes photos of the gunman at 5:14 p.m. on this spot. The local snipers positioned in this building right here. Now, eventually the gunman makes his way to the roof of this building where he fires off shots at 6:11 p.m. A local SWAT team officer telling ABC News a set in-person meeting with Secret Service snipers ahead of the rally never happened.
You had no communication with the Secret Service at all on that Saturday?
Not until after the shooting.
Members of Trump's personal Secret Service detail and top advisors say they were not informed local police were tracking a suspicious person.
The new Secret Service Director, Ronald Rowe Jr., took up to the mantle during the congressional hearing, laying out the Secret Service's failures and how they would improve.
I identified gaps in our security on July 13th and have implemented corrective actions.
One of Rowe's first actions in charge, a trip to Butler, Pennsylvania, to see the rally site himself.
What I saw made me ashamed. I cannot defend why that roof was not better secured.
Rowe outlined changes he's already made, including increasing the use of drones to secure rooftops and elevated spaces, expediting additional resource requests by field agents, and expanding communications for teams on the ground. Also launching disciplinary investigations into the agents who made the decisions for the Butler rally. Senators on both sides anxious for swift accountability at all levels.
People need to be held accountable and lose their jobs.
Just like you have. Somebody to hold them accountable.
Rowe pushing back on the pressure.
I will tell you, Senator, that I will not rush to judgment, that people will be held accountable, and I will do so with integrity.
In a rare news conference during the ongoing investigation, Rowe spoke directly to the American people about the shortcomings of the Secret Service on that deadly day.
The Secret Service takes full responsibility for the tragic events of July 13th. This was a mission failure. The sole responsibility of our agency is to make sure our protectees are never put in danger. We fell short of that in Butler, and I'm working to make sure that this failure does not happen again. I'm focused on ensuring that the full resources of the Secret Service are utilized to safeguard our protectees, and I've implemented and will continue to implement changes to ensure that that happens. But I can say without a doubt that heroism was present that day. Secret Service agents rushed to the stage to shield the former president with their bodies within 3 seconds of bullets ringing out in an unflinching act of bravery. The Secret Service counter-sniper who neutralized the threat with a single shot undoubtedly saved countless lives.
Remember, while this investigation is still going on, Trump is still campaigning for his presidency. He was literally at the Republican National Convention 2 days after the shooting. Many Trump supporters took to wrapping their ears with a bandage in solidarity with Trump's injuries. Trump took to the stage with his own bandage 5 days after the shooting, alongside the gear of Corey Comperatore.
I started to, like this, turn to my right, and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood. There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that. The amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would not be here tonight. We would not be together. When I rose, surrounded by Secret Service, the crowd was confused because they thought I was dead, and there was great, great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. They didn't know I was looking out. They thought it was over. But I could see it, and I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight." Thank you. Once my clenched fist went up, and it was high into the air, you've all seen that, the crowd realized I was okay and roared with pride for our country like no crowd I have ever heard before.
Trump made good on his promise to return to Butler, Pennsylvania to finish off his campaign rally. And on October 5th, he once again addressed the crowd.
Exactly 12 weeks ago this evening on this very ground, a cold-blooded assassin aimed to silence me and to silence the greatest movement, MAGA, in the history of our country. MAGA. We love MAGA. For 16 harrowing seconds during the gunfire, time stopped as this vicious monster unleashed pure evil from his sniper's perch, not so far away. But by the hand of Providence and the grace of God, that villain did not succeed in his goal, did not come close.
Now, even after Trump won the presidency in November, he never forgot about the attempt on his life, and he made law enforcement a central theme during his cabinet selection.
Will you pledge to us that you will open the books on all of the facts associated and around these assassination attempts, that you will make available to us and to the public, most importantly, all the facts so that we can ensure that this never happens again and that the needed reforms in the Secret Service are put into effect?
Yeah, Senator, if I am the Secretary of Homeland Security, I will certainly work with you to build transparency and make sure the facts are shared with you and your committee. I know that you've been very frustrated by the lack of transparency from the department, and I want to thank those of you that have worked on that report that was put together on these assassination attempts. I know it was a bipartisan report and investigation that this committee conducted, and I appreciate you focusing on that, and I will work with you to get the information so that you have the truth of really what happened there and the failures so they can be fixed.
Trump continued to marvel that he had survived the assassination attempt. Here he is at a National Day of Prayer celebration.
But with God, the scripture tells us all things are possible. Well, look at me. I'm standing before you today. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. A lot of people said I shouldn't have been here. A beautiful day in Pennsylvania. It's a shot that should not have been missed. Well, it got me a little bit. It got me a little bit, but pretty amazing. My son, who's a great shooter, Don, both of them, Eric, they said it's like sinking a 1-foot putt from where that shooter was with that particular weapon. Don said, Dad, I'll tell you, you got saved by God. This is, you know, I shouldn't say this, but that was a big statement for him to make. He was moved, Eric, likewise, because it's, you know, you could say it's a miracle or you could say something, but it was really, it was God that saved me.
Not only was he thankful for his own life, but he continued to honor the life and family of Corey Comperatore, even inviting them to his first address to Congress.
Gunfire rang out, and a sick and deranged assassin unloaded 8 bullets from his sniper's perch into a crowd of many thousands of people. My life was saved by a fraction of an inch, but some were not so lucky. Corey Comperatore was a firefighter, a veteran, a Christian, a husband, a devoted father, and above all, a protector. When the sound of gunshots pierced the air, it was a horrible sound. Corey knew instantly what it was and what to do. He threw himself on top of his wife and daughters and shielded them from the bullets with his own body. Corey was hit really hard. You know the story from there. He sacrificed his life to save theirs. 2 others, very fine people, were also seriously hit. But thankfully, with the help of 2 great country doctors, we thought they were gone and they were saved. So those doctors had great talent. We're joined by Corey's wife, Helen, who was his high school sweetheart, and their 2 beloved daughters, Allison and Kaylee. Thank you. To Helen, Allison, and Kaylee, Corey is looking down on his 3 beautiful ladies right now, and he is cheering you on. He loves you. He is cheering you on. Corey was taken from us much too soon, but his destiny was to leave us all with a shining example of the selfless devotion of a true American patriot. It was love like Corey's that built our country, and it's love like Corey's that is going to make our country more majestic than ever before. I believe that my life was saved that day in Butler for a very good reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that. Thank you.
And this week, yes, almost a year after the shooting, 6 Secret Service agents were suspended for their roles and failures during the assassination attempt. Even though it's been a year, the story keeps evolving. That's why you should be sure to check in with the National News Desk online and on our socials at the National Desk for the latest updates.